Be here now. Just be here now.
Welcome to Living with Reality, a podcast featuring archived teachings and modern conversations with Dr. Robert Svoboda, brought to you by the Be Here Now Network. Living with Reality explores Ayurveda and other wisdom traditions of India, which Dr. Svoboda has been studying for nearly 50 years. For more information, please visit BeHereNowNetwork.com/Dr. Svoboda. That's DRSVOBODA. Hello, and welcome to the Living with Reality podcast. I'm Paula Crossfield, your host and Dr. Svoboda's media manager. This week on the podcast, we're featuring an episode that Dr. Svoboda recorded for Dr. Vignesh Devraj's podcast, Ayurvedic Healing and Beyond. This conversation really centers on karma, and it was a wide, sweeping conversation about karma in light of illness, karma in the case of us not getting what we want, and his recommendations for really what we should be thinking about and doing differently. So we hope you enjoy this podcast. Definitely check out Dr. Vignesh's podcast, Ayurvedic Healing and Beyond. And if you're interested in studying with Dr. Svoboda, you can go to drsvoboda.teachable.com. That's DRSVOBODA.teachable.com. And there's some courses like one on karma, one on Jyotisha, and one on Saturn that all relate to this topic. In addition, you can study more Ayurvedic topics, including Dr. Svoboda and Claudia Welch's Foundations of Ayurveda 1 and 2 courses, which are like a semester each of Ayurvedic education and are quite in-depth. So you can find out all more about that at drsvoboda.com. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Dr. Robert Svoboda-ji, thank you so much for being part of this podcast. It means a world to me to have you here.
Thank you, Dr. J. And namaskaram.
And Svoboda-ji, I would like to discuss about the book that you have written, Karma, the Fate or Free Will. And being an Ayurvedic doctor, today being an Ayurvedic doctor, I always say, you get the leftover patients of the Western medicine. And many people come with the question, why me? Why do I have to go through this? And why do I have to go through many doctors? And finally, Ayurveda has some solutions, or even if it's not a life-changing solution, but Ayurveda gives some solutions there. So, and then they get into path of spirituality, metaphysics, and also they end up with the concept of law of karma. Why is this happening to me? Some people come with the concept, am I a victim? Why did this happen to me? Some people accept this. Maybe this is the lesson for my life. So then that concept of law of karma, it has been a question for many people. What should I understand from this? What is this karma? And how can I understand and how can I input this into my life and learn from this? So this is what I would like to discuss in this podcast, Svoboda-ji.
Thank you, G. And I think that first of all, what's important to remember is Gahana Karmano Gatihi. The gati, the way that karma moves, the reasons why things happen, they are gahana. They're very, very deep. They're very difficult for people like you and me who are human beings to understand. Mm-hmm. And just in that example that you gave just now, and this has been something that's been true really, maybe it's even slightly less true now, but it was true when I started the Ayurvedic College back in 1974, almost 50 years ago, that people came to Ayurveda only after they had exhausted all of their allopathic options.
So true.
And of course, one of the important reasons for this is that people go, and not everyone, but many people go to allopathy because it offers a quick fix. It offers immediate results. Of course, as is often the case with many things, fast results may not last very long. Fast does not always last. And so it is part of we have to think that for those patients, it is part of their karma to have to undergo many different kinds of interventions before they come to Ayurveda that will encourage their entire organism to be transformed. Another aspect of that reality is that many people simply do not want to acknowledge what is reality. And the reality is, if you do not eat properly, if you do not exercise properly, if you do not get good sleep, you will not be healthy. And the allopathy offers the illusion that you can ignore everything and take some pills or some injections or get an operation, and that will solve all your problems. And what it will do is solve some problems, and maybe it will allow you to ignore other problems. But if you do not do the things that are essential for keeping you healthy, at some point, nothing is going to work on you except going back and trying to become healthier again, which is what Ayurveda is all about. Now, I think we also have to consider the even bigger picture of why it is that Ayurveda, and not just Ayurveda, in India there are many medical systems, but if you think of Ayurveda and Unani and homeopathy and naturopathy and Siddha, people only go to them when they can't do anything else, when they have failed with allopathy. So what must be the karmas of these other medical systems that they only get the patients who have become very chronic and who will take a long time to be cured? So there must be and not just simple karma. One person's karma is not simple, but compared to the karma of an entire country or a medical system or a planet, then that one individual, that karma is very simple compared to this much more complex sort of karma. And I don't think there's any way to know why this is the case, but I think it's worthwhile noting that it is the case, that if you elect to become a Vaidya, an Ayurvedic doctor, you should understand that people are going to look at you in a particular way. And that way will differ from person to person. Some people will say, he did not get enough marks to go into the allopathic college. That's why he went to the Ayurvedic college. And when I attended the Tilak Ayurved Mahavidyalaya in Pune, almost 50 years ago, that was the main reason that 90% of the students went there. They wanted to go to allopathy, but they didn't get enough marks in the exam, and so they came to Ayurveda instead. So many people will think that. Many people will think that, this person is some sort of very traditional, orthodox Hindu who is only going to expect me to be very orthodox in a particular way, even though nowhere in Ayurveda does it say that you have to be Hindu or that you cannot be Sikh, Christian, Buddhist, Jain, or a Gnostic, even an atheist. The Ayurveda is not at all about sectarianism, but some people will think that way. And so the karmas are working in all directions at all times, and understanding why certain things work is a very difficult thing to do, because the system itself is built into the fabric of the universe. even modern physics has acknowledged that there is a fabric of space-time, and each one of us is interacting with that fabric in very subtle ways. And we refer to that as akasha. So that first manifestation of space-time in the Panchabhautik Vishwa that you and I are living in the universe made of the 5 Mahabhutas, the 5 elements, that first element is akasha. Without space-time, we would not have anything else. And karma is the traces of karma are being stored in the fabric of space-time. So they are available at all times, in all places. Some places, those traces are stronger. Some places they are weaker. And that's why at certain places and times, there will be a greater influence of your karmas or even someone else's karmas on you. And someone else's karmas can have a strong influence on you if you have a particular kind of Runanubandhana with them. Runanubandhana literally means the bondage, anubandhana, of Runa. And Runa means debt. In this case, it means karmic debt. I took something from you in the past. You took something from me. Now there is a situation where I have to return something to you, and you have to return something to me. I think many times people think that karma is very linear. It's, I owe this to this person. I will pay this person, and that will be the end of everything. Not necessarily, because there may have been many of these exchanges that now have to be worked out. So Runanubandhana is what is created by performing actions, and all actions in thought, in word, in deed, these are all karmas. And this is why it has been said, and I'm told that Gandhiji said this. I actually don't know that, but this is what I've been told, that once God created the law of karma, he was able to retire. And why this is the case is that the law of karma is a universal law. It's Newton's third law of physics. Wherever there is an action, there will be a reaction. And it happens in the fabric of space-time. And those actions are stored in the fabric of space-time. And then when the time for the reaction occurs, when the karma phala, the fruits of karma, have matured, then automatically that reaction will occur. It doesn't require some supreme being to be directing everything. It is happening automatically. It is happening everywhere at all times in a very sort of kind of like a hologram, where everything is the same in all places, everywhere. So understanding how this happens is something that may be very difficult or impossible for you and me to do. What we can try to understand is the karmic patterns in our lives and how we can best work with those patterns. But the problem is that if you say to yourself, I want to understand why this karma happened, you're asking for quite a lot. In fact, you're asking for more than the devatas themselves have available to them. So you and I are not devatas. And if the devatas have problems, then you and I are going to have problems also. There's a very fine story that my mentor, Vimalanandaji, liked to tell about Indra, Bhagavan Indra, the king of the devatas, and his parrot, his shuka, his tota. And Indra had a long and happy experience of life with the parrot. until the point one day that he had a thought. And that thought was, I have enjoyed this, my association with this parrot for so long. What a great parrot. How fortunate I am. But at some point, the parrot is going to die, because even we devatas, we are supposed to be amara, but nothing is amara, really. Mm-hmm. Even at the time of the Mahapralaya, everything dissolves. So the parrot is also going to disappear. When will that happen? Now, thought, word, and deed. So this first thought that Indra had, this was a karma. And this set in motion a set of karmas that was going to end in the death of the parrot. But Indra did not know this, because he was being influenced by the karmas of the parrot. So the karmas of the parrot, because it was time for the parrot to die, the karmas of the parrot started to influence Indra. And Indra thought, oh my goodness, the parrot is going to die. When is that going to happen? I don't know. Even though I'm Indra, I do not know this. It's very unfortunate that I have to admit that I am not sarvajna, omniscient, but I am not. So I must go to someone to try to find out. So why don't I go to Lord Brahma, who is, after all, he has created everything. He must know how long these things will last. So we went to Brahma, and he said, Bhagawan, please explain. And Brahma said, Indra, the situation is that I just create things. I don't know anything else about how long they live or when they're going to die. So I think that you need to ask Vishnu. But this is a very interesting question. So maybe I will come with you and we will ask Vishnu, because he is the preserver. When he stops preserving, that's the end of the life of that jiva. So they go to Bhagawan Vishnu. And Bhagawan Vishnu, he is lying down on Sheshanaga, he is Sheshashayi, and he is enjoying calm. Lakshmi is massaging his legs. And they say, Bhagawan Vishnu, please explain to us this situation. When is the parrot, this beautiful parrot, look, here's the parrot, going to die? Ek din to mar jayenge. When is it going to die? And Vishnu said, well, yes, I am in charge of preserving everything, but the situation is that even I don't really know when or how they're going to die. I'm just, when it's time for them to die, it becomes obvious. I stop preserving them, and then something happens to them. But I really don't know when that's going to happen. So I think what we need to do is go and visit Lord Shiva. He is the god of death. He is in charge of. He sends out Yama, his Swarupa, in order to kill people. Shiva will certainly know. And now I'm interested too, so let's all go and ask Mahesha. So Indra and the parrot and Vishnu and Brahma, they all go to Bhagawan Shankara, who is sitting quietly in Samadhi. And they come, and there's enough of their attention on him that he comes down out of Samadhi, and he says, Om. And they all say, here's the situation. When is the parrot going to die? And Shiva said, honestly, I don't do anything on my own. I just follow what Vidata has written. Vidata is fate, destiny personified. All I do is what Vidata sends me a message, time to kill this person. So I go over and kill that person. That's all that I do. But now I'm curious about the situation. So let's go ask Vidata. So now the parrot and Indra and Brahma and Vishnu and Mahesh, all of them have gone to visit Vidata, fate personified. And so they go to visit fate, and they all say, oh, Vidata Bhagawan, you are in charge of deciding who lives and who dies. And when that happens, please tell us when this beautiful parrot is going to pass on. And Vidata said, thank you for asking. Take a look at the parrot. and the parrot was lying on its back with its two little legs up in the air. It was dead. Marge. End of parrot. And they all were shocked and astonished, and they turned back to Vidata, and fate said, it was written in the parrot's destiny that when the parrot, along with Indra, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, all came in front of Vidata, then the parrot would die. So if Indra had not thought of this question and not met all of you, and you had not all come, the parrot would still be alive. However, the parrot is now dead, so that was the end of that.
That's such a powerful story. I mean, when we read that, two questions come to our mind. Like, is everything already predestined, or to what extent do I have my free will? I mean, this is the question that we always go. And like in that book, Fate or Free Will, you have written, there are some parts people believe that if you are sick, you should not go to a doctor because you're going through the sickness because it's your karma. But then Ayurveda people came and told, maybe finding that doctor was also part of your karma, so you came for your treatment. So this was again another way of looking at it. Like, it's not that you're suffering because of your karma, but finding a healer and going through that healing is also a part of your destiny. I mean, so when we look at these two, where do we understand what is it my free will and where is fate? Like, there is a statement which I love, but it's by a person called Reinhold Niebuhr. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So Dr. Svoboda ji, I think your book was about how to know the difference, but can you elaborate? How can we be more sensitive to understand the difference? What is it that I can change and what is it that I cannot? What is the karma that I have to go through? And what is the karma that this I can relinquish and also to use my free will there?
And this is an excellent question. And of course, it is a question that people have been asking for thousands of years. And there is still no one answer. And there's still no one answer for that very reason that was explained in that story about Indra and his parrot.
Exactly.
If it is my destiny to experience something, then no matter how many times I try to figure out what to do, all of the directions will point me towards doing what I have to do. So there was a famous story about the Indian film actor Dilip Kumar. I forget his real name. Let's just call him Dilip Kumar. He had a Jyotishi, an astrologer, and that Jyotishi would advise him, please take this project, ignore this project. And by following this advice of this astrologer, Dilip Kumar was a great actor. He was in many classic films. He became very famous. He accumulated a good amount of cash. And then he said to himself, it's great that I've done all of this acting, but I want to be a producer myself. And he came up with a project and he took it to the astrologer, and the astrologer said, absolutely, it's going to be a big hit. And Dilip Kumar made the project, and it was a total flop. All of the money gone. And then Dilip Kumar went back to the astrologer, and the astrologer looked again, and then he said, oh my God, I made a mistake that even an amateur astrologer would not make. But of course, then it was too late. And why did he make that mistake? He made that mistake, even though he had been looking at this chart for the past many, many years. He made this mistake because it was destined that Dilip Kumarji should lose all of his money at this moment. So sometimes, if the karmas are completely fixed, which is why you will have a which is why people will think that karma is fated. Sometimes when the karmas are completely fixed, no matter what you try to do, no matter where you try to go, no matter how you try to think about it, you will be forced to think in a particular way so that you will get to that particular result. And when it's really fated that way, then there is no escape. There's a Sufi story about a man living in Baghdad in Iraq. And this is hundreds of years ago. And that Sufi, this man was a very, he was a good sadhak, and he was aligning himself with reality. And one day he was in the bazaar in Baghdad and he saw death. And he thought, oh my God, I'm seeing death, and this can't be good. Maybe death is looking for me. I had better leave Baghdad. I will go to Samarra, and that will be far away from Baghdad. He will never be able to find me over there. And back in Baghdad, death is standing there, and he is thinking to himself, how strange that I should see this man today in the bazaar in Baghdad, because I have an appointment with him in Samarra tomorrow. So had that man not seen death, had that man not thought about death, he would have stayed in Baghdad. He would not have gone to Samarra. He would not have died. But the very fact that it was time for him to die, he saw death. He thought, I'm going to save myself by going to Samarra. And all he did was put himself in the place where death could take him away. So this degree of karma is what we call in Jyotisha drda karma. Drda. And drda is a difficult word to say because it is a difficult concept. Drda means fixed, solid, immobile, can't be moved. Dhruva had drda vishwasa in Lord Vishnu. That's why he is Dhruva. He is stable. And what you want to look at when you're using Jyotisha to look at someone's life, you want to see the areas where there is drda karma, because those are the areas that you can make predictions on. It's very hard to predict about karma that is not fixed, because people are performing karmas all the time. So the opposite of drda karma is adrda karma. In Sanskrit at the beginning of a word means not. So not fixed, adrda. And that means that the karmas in this area of your life are not completely fated. You will be able to perform some karmas now in this lifetime and make changes in your destiny in this area of your lifetime. And so there is this concept that there is a difference between what is really fixed and fated and what is not really fixed and fated. One of the problems that I've seen talking to people about Jyotisha over these past, I've been studying Jyotisha since 45 years now, is in India, most people believe that everything is fated, that everything is written down in the horoscope and you can see it and it's obvious and your life is going to be like that, whether you want it to be or not. And in many other places, like many so-called New Age people, especially in the West, but all over the world nowadays, many of these New Age people, they believe that nothing is fated, that you can do anything you want to at any time because the universe is full of so many possibilities, that everything is great. And both of these extremes are not accurate. The real accurate reality is that some things are fated and some things are not fated. Now the question comes, how do we figure out which things are fated and which things are not fated? And that is not so easy. In Jyotisha, what we do is we look for something that we call in English confluence. And confluence means if I look at a situation using several different principles, because in Jyotish there are many principles, many different ways of looking at a chart. And the rule is if every time or most of the different principles that you apply to a chart, if they give you the same result, then that probably means that that result is fated, because you're getting the same message from many different places. And usually that's accurate. But let's say, okay, suppose you do not know Jyotisha, then what do you do? Then you may have to use the method of trial and error. You decide that, let's say, for example, you want to learn a new language, and you start studying that language. And if you get good results easily, and then you continue studying it for many months and years, then you speak it regularly, then there's a good chance you will learn that language. But sometimes it will happen that even if you study that language for many years and you have many people trying to teach you, and you are working very sincerely and very hard, and you still cannot pick up that language, that means either that it is not in your destiny to learn that language, or it is not in your destiny to learn any other language. So the method of trial and error is the method that you may have to use unless you have something like Jyotisha to assist you, or maybe you have some guru, and then you can employ what we call aptavakya. You can get advice from someone who is very knowledgeable about karma, and they can tell you that this is in your destiny or not in your destiny. Or maybe you will get a dream, or maybe there will be some other indication. But if there is no indication that you can get, then you simply have to try things out, and you have to pay close attention, because otherwise you see people trying to do the same thing over and over. They want to learn to sing, and they get a Sangeet guru, and they do riyaz, they do abhyasa for a long time, and they still don't sound any good. And they conclude that the Sangeet guru is useless, and they get another Sangeet guru, and then they get another one, but the result is the same. If you keep getting the same result again and again, there are only two possibilities. One is that at that time in your life, that is the only result you can get. And maybe in the future, you will get a different result according to your dashas, which planet is influencing you at which time. Or the possibility is that your lifelong, that is going to be the same result. And sometimes it's difficult to know, but sometimes it's almost always difficult to know. But it's valuable to always, and this is something very similar to what we describe in Ayurveda as upashaya, unupashaya chikitsa. And what that means to me is that suppose you have a condition and you're not sure exactly which line of treatment is going to work the best. So you try this line of treatment first. And if it gives you a good result, then you continue with it, because whatever works is the medicine. And you continue with it until it stops giving results or it starts giving the opposite result, and then you stop. So upashaya and anupashaya. If something works, you continue with it. If it does not work, you stop doing it, and then you start doing something else. This requires you to be very alert, to pay close attention to the results of everything that you do. Now, some results will not come immediately. Some results will take a longer time to come your way. So you have to be, and it's always helpful to have other people, an astrologer, a saintly type sadhu, guru figure, any kind of elder person who has more experience than you, especially an expert in that area of knowledge that you're interested in. Getting advice from good people can assist you to understand whether something is actually whether you're going to be able to be successful or maybe not.
So Svobodaji, I mean, this, some people listening to this might feel relieved. Some people listening to this might feel, oh my God, so I am fated to go through this. So in such situations, we usually tell them, once you know this is how the fate is going to be, let's not waste our time fighting it. Let us minimize the casualties that could happen from there. Like, I think in your book, there is a part when you mention, let's imagine that, there is a fate that a stone is going to hit your head. Maybe we do have the possibility to reduce the size of the stone, or a big stone can hit you and you could be really brain injured, or we could do some certain steps to make sure the size of the stone could be reduced. And that is one aspect in your book that I have read. So even though some fate can be possible, but you also mentioned that we do have the possibility to minimize whatever the risk. And also there is a statement that you mentioned of Voltaire. As Voltaire used to say, you may not be able to alter the cards dealt to you in the game of life, but you certainly have control over how you play them. Even if your free will does not extend to changing your fate, it may extend to being able to manipulate your life in such a way that you minimize one area of fate that is not so desirable and maximize one area of fate that is. So I think this is where the whole idea is. I mean, where we can interpret all the sciences of Jyotish, the sciences of our gurus, and also this Aptavachana. I think that's where we need to invest our learning more.
This is why it is so important, and this is why it has been emphasized again and again by expert people that during Kali Yuga, the most important thing to do is to repeat the name of God, because that itself is a karma. And the more you repeat that name, the more you align with that reality. And as you align more with that reality, then automatically the reality of Bhagavan or God or whatever name you want to apply, that reality will organize your life in the best possible way automatically. There is a famous book on Advaita Vedanta called the Tripura Rahasya. And in the Tripura Rahasya, there is one passage that says very clearly, what are you waiting for? Do you not see all around you that the fire of destruction is burning down everything that has been created? Do not waste any time. Immediately go to the feet of Lord Shiva and surrender to him completely. And he will organize things in your life as best as possible. So yes, it makes a tremendous difference. And here is where we have to draw the distinction between the fact of the karma and the intensity of the karma. So it's sort of like the difference between Shiva and Shakti. The Shakti provides intensity. Shiva provides orientation, direction, and it provides the nature of what is going to happen. Shakti provides the intensity. So if it is a rock that is going to fall on your head, Vimalananda, my mentor, used to say, if the rock is destined to fall on your head, it is going to fall on your head unless someone takes that karma away from you and takes on that karma for himself or herself. Otherwise, the rock is going to fall on your head. But it will make a tremendous difference if the rock weighs 1 gram, or it weighs 1 kilo, or it weighs 1 ton. If it weighs 1 gram, it will bounce off your head. You may not even feel it. If it weighs 1 ton, probably you will not feel it either, because it will fall on your head and smash you completely, and probably immediately. If it weighs 1 kilo, then that could cause you a lot of damage unless you have a very strong helmet on. And that helmet, it will hit the helmet, it will dent it, it may bruise your head, but at least it will not kill you. And that helmet is what we call, in both Ayurveda and Jyotish, upaya. Upaya. And aya in Sanskrit, of course, means income. Aya and vyaya. But upaya means a secondary benefit. So it's secondary because it's not solving the problem completely. It's secondary because at least it is mitigating the problem. It is reducing the problem. And this is the third area of karmic intensity. It's called drda karma. Drda plus adrda. So that karma is fixed, but it's not yet completely fixed. Let's say you painted your room, and then you realized, oh my God, this is the wrong color. I don't know what I was thinking. It must have been in my karma. What do I do now? But if the paint has not dried yet, you can still get some paint thinner, and you can reduce the amount of paint on the wall, and then you can put some darker paint on top of it, and it will not be as good as if you had done the original paint job in the right color, but at least it will have salvaged the situation. So that applies here also. Sometimes you will see in a person's chart that the karmas look very drda, but that there is the possibility that they could be made less drda. So that situation is drda. And in that case, upaya is very important. And for an upaya, you have to do some serious penance for a serious amount of time. That's another thing that people seem to forget, that when you want to actually change your karmas, that's not going to be as simple as simply repeating a mantra without focusing on it for a few minutes a day. It's going to require you to do a serious anushtana or purascharana, or to do some serious fasting, or to do some serious penance in order to burn through a lot of that karmic intensity that is interfering with your ability to move forward. One thing that Vimalananda did want everyone to remember is that life is not a sprint race. It's not a 100-meter race. It's an ultra marathon. It's a 100-kilometer race. It's a 200-kilometer race. You have to move slowly forward. He also used to say that, remember, if you were walking on the road is never going to get tired. You are the person who's going to get tired. So if you really want to transform your reality, you don't want to get all excited and do some very intense things for 2 months and then go back to your previous pattern of living. You want to start doing the right things for yourself and keep increasing your momentum until you get to a place where you feel like you are doing as much as you can. And then you keep doing that much, and you just keep doing that much indefinitely, because if it is giving you good results, you should not stop until it stops giving you good results. But with the name of God, once you start getting good results, you will continue getting good results. Now, in that regard, Vimalananda also said, remember that when you start repeating the name of God, the first thing that's going to happen is you will become more miserable. And that's because God is going to start causing these not so good karmas to manifest so you can get rid of them, so that you can be free of all of this heavy weight of karma that is on you. Because if you did not have a heavy weight of karma, you could not possibly have been born here in Mrityu Loka. You have to have very serious karmas to be born in Mrityu Loka, which is where we are right now.
I think that analogy that when you start, doing the sadhana or the penance or calling the name of the god to burn through the karmas, it gets worse before it gets better. I mean, when people come for panchakarma treatment, I tell them when they undergo the treatment, it gets even worse. They feel more tired. And I give the analogy, when you're washing the plate, it's going to look really messy till it becomes clean at one time.
Yes. That is an excellent analogy. That yes, you enjoyed the food and it was very tasty. And then you look at all of the plates and all of the pots and all of the pans, and they're all stacked up there. And that's not so attractive. But the fact is that you have to go through all of that, and then you will be able to cook another meal and have another enjoyment. And you may as well start doing it. And if you can't do it all at one time, then do this much now, and then do this much, and then do some more, and then it will be finished. And this applies also to people who are getting panchakarma done, because so many people, they want to have all of their problems dealt with at one time. And if you try to get all of your problems dealt with, then there's a good chance that you will create more problems for yourself. I remember meeting someone. This was a number of years ago, and this person had been. It was an American, had been studying with a well-known at that time Vaidya in India, and they had been doing very intense panchakarma on themselves, and as part of this process, suddenly there came up from a manifestation in this person's body of a skin problem that they had when they were very small, totally forgotten about. And this skin problem had come up, but at a moment when the body was too weak to go through the whole process of having it come up and then throwing it out. So it had come up, but it had not been thrown out. And then it had got stuck in the sort of Trishanku kind of avastha. Mm-hmm. And it had already been a couple of years that the problem had been stuck there because that individual was trying to bring everything out at one time instead of simply allowing the body to let go of what it wanted to let go of at that moment and then rebuilding before trying to purify again. This is one thing that unfortunately I see happen in many people. They focus on purification, on shodhana, but they forget about the shamana. They forget that in Ayurveda, if you spend X number of days in shodhana, you have to spend at least X number of days performing shamana so that there will be, first there has been kshaya, there's been reduction of the body, and now there has to be vriddhi. Now you have to rebuild the body so that it will be well enough integrated so that you can purify it again.
I think there is a beautiful statement that rightly gives this analogy. There are no incurable diseases, only incurable people. I think people want it super fast.
Yes, I believe that is an excellent saying. That the disease, every disease can be cured. Whether that disease in you can be cured, that's a different question. Exactly. But any disease that has arisen can be eliminated, but we may not be able to eliminate it from you because how you and the disease interact is a different thing than just the disease on its own.
And so just a few more questions. I mean, in your book, Karma, Fate or Free Will, you mentioned that sometimes it could take up to 7 generations to let go of the karmic inheritance of our ancestors. Like, you know, we could have 50% from the mother, father, and 25% from grandparents and things like that. So sometimes people ask, I don't know why I have these cravings. I don't know why I have these patterns. Sometimes it could be something from the karmic inheritance from my ancestors. I mean, logically, we could understand. Like sometimes I've seen parents come and say that I could not achieve this, so I want my son to achieve this for me.
Right.
And if they're dead, you know, we could continue that. So same way, we could also inherit that certain patterns that we did not choose it consciously in our life, but it's already predestined. So when we know that, there is also a statement in Ashtanga Hridaya. It says that Balihi Purushakaro Devam Apyati Vartate. No matter what kind of problem it is, if you do the right penance, right sadhana, you will be able to get out of it. And today we see some people are born obese, some people are born with metabolic disorders, which are reversible. But when they go through that right approach with a given period of time, suddenly they say that I was able to get through that. And looking at me, it would look like I was living past life and I'm a new person. So definitely a shift in that will be possible. But in the concepts of Jyotish, in the concepts of this spirituality, what will be the mindset that we need to inculcate first to understand this is something that I have inherited through my past karmas or because I'm born to this lineage. But at the same time, I can change that. What will be the way to get through that karmic? Sometimes the karma can be good. Sometimes I could inherit a lot of money from my grandparents. Sometimes my grandparents had a lot of debt, so I could also inherit that. But both are important for me. But sometimes it's not so pleasant to inherit the debt, but it's very pleasant to inherit a lot of money. But how do we take this if it is a debt? And how do we enjoy this to understand?
In my opinion, the first thing that everybody should do is to admit the reality of whatever situation they are in. Vimalananda always liked to say that it is always good to live with reality, because if you don't, reality will come to live with you. And that's what happens to many people. Here's the reality. There are these debts that I have from my grandparents. I would like to avoid it, but those debts have now come down to me. Well, it is now up to me to decide how to deal with that situation. The worst way to deal with the situation is to pretend that it does not exist. That is the completely Thomasy, that is the approach of Thomas. Oh, those, I'm ignoring those. That has no reality. Meanwhile, the interest is increasing, and the court believes it has reality. The government believes, the bank, they all agree that it has some reality. But you say, no, everything is fine, until one day you are arrested because you have been ignoring all of the messages that reality has been trying to send to you. Then there's the approach of Rajas. Oh, I must deal with this immediately. I will work very hard. I will pay it off as quickly as I can. But then you work so hard that you damage your health, you damage your relationship with your family because you ignore them. You decide that what you're going to do is solve this problem immediately, but by solving that problem, you create 3 other problems. That's more the excess Rajas approach to things. Be overactive. Whereas the approach of Sattva, Sat meaning true or real, is to examine the situation carefully. Here are these debts. I may not like them, but I'm responsible for them. But I can't pay them off all at once. It might take me 20 years to pay them off. But at least if I pay them off this much a year over 20 years, after 20 years, it will get paid off. Meanwhile, I can take care of my other responsibilities to myself, to my family, to whatever my job is. I can take care of everything without making anything, without neglecting anything. It will require focus, it will require determination, and it will require the ability to keep moving forward even when things are challenging. Now, today, of course, people have a much shorter attention span. And part of the reason, of course, is because of screens like this. They have a shorter attention span because they always want to know what new. Navinam kshane kshane. Everything, every moment, there's something new is happening. And people are so focused on what is happening on the outside that they forget that what is most important is understanding who you are, what your obligations are, and how you can move forward properly. One of the greatnesses of India is that they have not focused so much on how great life is. They focused more on what are your Runas, who do you owe in life? And you have a Matru Runa, you have a debt to your mother, because she gave you life. You have a Pitru Runa, you have a debt to your father because you have his Gotra, you have his lineage, and you are in his family. You have a debt to your Guru, you have a debt to the Vidya that you learn. So there are many debts that you have, and those are many of them are separate from the personal karmic debts that you have. These are generic debts that everyone who is born has. You have a debt to the prithvi, the land where you were born, and to the language that you speak, and to the culture that you're brought up in, and to the devatas to your Ishta Devata. So being aware of all of these karmic obligations that we have, and understanding that if we pay back a little bit of each obligation every day, then that is going to every day benefit us as we move forward through life. As Charakacharya says, in his chapter on Rasayana, in his Chikitsasthana, that yes, there's all these substances that we can use for Rasayana, but a person who speaks the truth and observes the various restrictions that are necessary for life, and then takes in and displays all of those good gunas that we require in order to live properly, that person, just by his or her achara, by behavior, is rejuvenated every day. That's the achara rasayana. So each one of us, that if we are paying attention to what we know that we owe, to the debts that we know that we have, and we pay back each one a little bit every day, then over a period of many years, there will be a tremendous transformation in the karmic perspective of where we started and where we have got as a result of being focused and disciplined and diligent. So I think that all too often what happens is people decide that they must try to change something in themselves that doesn't seem to be changeable. But if it is not changeable and you have tried to change it, if you make a sincere attempt to change it, let's say 3 times, you make a sincere attempt over a period of time to change it, no result. You say, okay, maybe it's not the right time. You wait a year or 2, you do it again, no result. You say, okay, maybe it's not the right time. You wait again, you try it again, you don't get any result. You have to start to think that maybe you're not going to get a result in that area of your lifetime. And there probably are other areas in your life that you can put in that same amount of effort and get a much better result. So why not put in extra effort over in those areas where you are getting results, and keep getting results until you're not getting so many results anymore, and then move on to something new. But I forget what that saying is, but it's sort of like the definition of
insanity.
Thank you.
Doing the same thing and expecting different results.
And expecting a different result. Yes. So we have to think of that as being insanity.
I can completely relate to that. I think if I have to sum up or rephrase what you mentioned, it's like the concept of Sattva is to understand where to apply Rajas and where to apply Tamas. Sometimes you need to act on it. Sometimes you just need to be passive about it. Just let it go. Just don't bother it.
Rajas and Tamas are very excellent qualities, and without them, the world would not exist. I still run across some people who claim to practice yoga who believe that they must exist only in Sattva and avoid Rajas and Tamas completely. But we can't avoid Rajas and Tamas when we're living in the world. What we can do is use the right amount of rajas and tamas at the right moment in order to achieve the goals that we want to achieve.
I think the idea of calling the name of God or sadhana is to appreciate the sattva quality, which is sattva is the clarity to know where to use rajas and where to use tamas. I think that clarity is the foundation of this knowledge.
Definitely. And that's why you're repeating the name of God, because at that moment, when you repeat that name, at that moment, maybe not afterwards, at that moment, that you have that much extra clarity in your awareness. And if you keep doing that every day, then that is going to build up a pattern of having that sort of clarity in your awareness. And then when you try to examine things, then that clarity, there will be some extra clarity. And maybe just at that moment when you need this much extra clarity, it will be there because you have been repeating that name and gaining that little bit of extra clarity day after day after day.
And Svoboda-ji, you mentioned about your mentor, Swami Vimalananda. What is his definition of enlightenment? And would you say that enlightenment means that I'm giving up my karmic baggage? Or how would you define that in your understanding?
The way he defined it is he said it has nothing to do with being able to see a bright spiritual light, because there, you can do various sadhanas and you will see bright lights, and that will be, but that may not have transformed your karmas. All you have done that way is performing a karma that is giving you a result. But in this case, performing or moving towards enlightenment, he said, meant making your karmic load lighter, working off the karmas that are weighting you down, that are keeping you in this plane of existence, in Mrityu Loka. The more you work through those karmas, the less there is that heaviness, and the more your awareness can move up into the astral regions. So for him, enlightenment meant, and inevitably, as your pre-existing karmas are worked off, then it becomes increased clarity in your awareness. And the more clarity that you have, the better you are able to know, to evaluate a situation and to know the best way to act in that situation. As Lord Krishna said very clearly in chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, he has several definitions of karma in that book, and the one in chapter 2 is karma. He has various definitions of yoga. So in chapter 2, that definition is yoga karmasu kaushalam. And that means yoga is adeptness in action, performing actions, because everyone performs actions, but performing them very carefully so that you get the maximum good result and the minimum side effects. I always like that word kaushala because it comes from the word kusha. And kusha, of course, is that sacred grass that you make a kusha asana for. When you're doing pitru karma, you use kusha. And kusha, when it is fresh, is very sharp. It's easy. I've cut myself on it before. It's easy to cut yourself with it. So a person who is kaushala is someone who can use this kusha grass, who can manipulate it without getting cut. So Yoga means to work with your personal karmas in such a way that they don't cut you, but instead you create something beneficial out of them. And that's, of course, also why Lord Krishna in the Gita says as well, karmanye va dikaras te ma paleshu kadachana. Do the karma that you are adhikara for. That is the karma that you are fit to do, and the karma that you were responsible to do. You have to perform karma, that you're in the world. Every breath is a karma. Every thought is a karma. Every movement is a karma. Just perform the karma and dedicate the phala, dedicate the fruit of the karma, whatever result may come, dedicate it to me, meaning Krishna, and I will take care of everything. So this is the reason why we have karmas is because we identify an action as belonging to us. I am going to go purchase a banana. There is a karma involved. Purchasing the banana is not the karma. Identifying myself as the purchaser of the banana is the karma. So if you say, Bhagavan Krishna has provided me with money, Bhagavan Krishna has provided me with hunger, Bhagavan Krishna has provided me with that nice lady over there who's selling bananas, and I'm going to bring these all together, and I'm going to therefore have a banana, which I'm going to eat as I offer to Bhagavan Krishna and to the Agni that is in my stomach. I am Vaishwanara. And then the karmas are much less because you are not always identifying yourself as I am making money, I am buying things, I am very clever. All that I-ness is creating more and more karma that is keeping you stuck where you are.
I think I used to think that the word kusha, it also means happiness. The word kush also in Hindi means happiness. So it means that you're using it for the yogastu karma kaushalam. I think it's a way of getting happiness because you're being detached from the negative effects.
Yes. And that's the effect of true happiness also. It's people, you know, I think it's in the Srimad Bhagavata, they talk about the 3 different varieties of sukha. We have the sukha that is mostly associated with sattva. And that sukha is, first there is dukkha and then there is sukha. First you pay off your karmic debt and then you enjoy because now the debt is paid off. You don't have to think about it. The approach that is influenced by rajas is first you enjoy and you keep enjoying and you don't worry about the karmic debt until it becomes so large that you cannot avoid it anymore. But at least you had some pleasure. But in the case of tamas, there is dukkha at the beginning, dukkha in the middle, dukkha at the end, because what you think is pleasure is actually pain. You are taking drugs. You are harassing people. You are making money and never giving any of it away. You are taking money from people who are poor. All of these are, you think you are enjoying, but all that you're doing, you're not even really enjoying. You're enjoying in a very peculiar, perverted, abnormal kind of way. And you're creating worse karmas for yourself, that not just karmic debts, but very negative karmic debts that are going to come in your direction.
I think the idea is to be as conscious as possible, and that consciousness is the key here.
Yes, and to remember that one of the things we have to be most conscious of is the consciousness of what we desire and whether those desires are appropriate for us, and whether we can simply say, Bhagawan, this is what I desire. I don't know if it is good for me or not. Please, you organize things in my life in such a way that if it is good for me, that I will have it. If it is not good for me, please don't let me have it. This is a perfectly reasonable and equitable way to communicate with nature or providence or Bhagawan or whatever you want to call it, the universe. Because what you're saying is, this is my desire, but that's what I want is what is the right thing for me. What most people think of is, this is my desire, and because it's my desire, it must be the right thing for me. Otherwise, why would I have the desire? Forgetting that you have the desire because of your previous karmas. Otherwise, you would not have that desire. And unless you are sure that those karmas were all good karmas, then you cannot be sure then that desire is going to be a good desire for you or not. So this is why, there is the famous yogi, Nath yogi called Gorakhnath. And there are many sayings of Gorakhnath in the world. And one of those sayings is, Bina mange sumile dud, mange sumile pani, kenche se liye khun, ye Gorakh bani. So what Gorakh says is that if you don't desire anything, nature will feed you milk, because the milk comes from the mother for the baby. The baby is not doing anything to demand to tell the mother that she has to provide him milk, or he's going to take her to court and see that that milk is delivered, whether she wants it to be delivered or not. No. The baby is simply helpless, and the mother is delivering milk out of the goodness of her heart. And if you remain calm, everything that you need, and you trust the universe, everything you need will come to you. If you ask for something from the universe will not give you milk, but it will give you water. I mean, nowadays things are different, but in the past in India, no, it was an unwritten law that if you asked anyone for water, they had to give it to you. And I mean, most of the time, even today, if you ask someone for water, they will say, of course, I will give you water, because that same person, if they were in a place where they were very thirsty, they would want someone else to give them water. But that's what the universe, when you ask for something from the universe, milk is nourishing. Water is not nourishing, but definitely will keep you from dying of thirst. That's better than dying of thirst, but it's not as good as milk. And the third thing is, if you grab for something, you don't even say, I would like this, please give it to me. You say, I am taking this. When you take something, then what you get is blood. Because when you take khun ka badla khun, when you take blood, then you're going to have to pay back in blood. It's a very strong karmic exchange, and very violent and very damaging. It will be damaging to whoever you take it from now. It will be damaging to you whenever the time comes to pay it back. So taking things and assuming that you have the right to take them, that is a big karma that you eventually are going to regret.
I think that's why there is a beautiful statement in your book where you mentioned maybe not getting what you really, really wanted could be the best thing that could happen to you. I think that's exactly what it is.
There was a famous Christian saint. in Spain, Saint Teresa of Avila.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, more tears have been shed over answered prayers than over unanswered prayers.
Mm.
So once you desire something and you get it, and then you realize, what was I thinking? Why did I want that in the first place? And now I have it, and what am I going to do with it now? So honestly, the best thing is to desire that God organize everything for you, God or the goddess or whoever you have faith in, and let that come your way. You do the work that you need to do in the world, and for everything else, you rely on the universe, have faith, have vishwas, have shraddha, and automatically what you require will come your way.
That's fantastic. And today, looking at the way, we are creating a lot of bloodshed and karma, there's just one last thing that I would like to ask you is, how do we use this wisdom of karma when it comes to forgiveness? Because I'm sure, somewhere or the other, we get hurt by others, or we are also hurting others. So forgiveness is something that we have to do to others, and also we need to be forgiven. So in such situations, how can we use the concept of the law of karma when it comes to forgiveness? So I think that's one element. There is also saying healing is never possible till you cannot forgive. And forgiveness, some people say, I cannot forgive. It's very difficult for me. And how can we approach that?
I think the first, and this is such an important question, Dr. Saib, thank you for asking it. I think the most important thing that people need to remember, first understand and then remember, is that you don't forgive someone else for their benefit. You forgive someone for your own benefit. Because while you're holding on to that thing, oh, this person hurt me so badly, you're holding on to that wound. You're holding on to that trauma. And as long as you hold on to the trauma, that trauma can afflict you.
Mm-hmm.
But when you let go of the trauma, yes, it happened. We don't deny it. Yes, it was wrong. Absolutely, we agree with you. But that is now in the past. It is not happening today. Now, you learn from the past. You don't ever forget. So if somebody has stolen something from me in the past, I will lock up the house to make sure that person cannot come in. But if I spend my entire life thinking about, that person stole something from me, then I am tying myself down to a previous karma, and I am creating new karmas at the same time, and I am connecting myself even more to that person. Why would I want to do that? What I want to do is let that person go out of my life. I don't want to deal with that person anymore. Let them have whatever life they have, better or worse, I don't care. But that person, I'm not interested in keeping that person in my life. And the best way to get rid of that is to forgive them and say, yes. And it's very important for people to remember. And it's hard for many people to accept this. And sometimes it sounds like we're blaming the victim. But the reality is that anything that comes to you, bad or good, is your karma. And it may come through any person, but that person is just a vahana. That person is just the method by which that karma is coming to you. And why is it happening through that person? Because you had a runanubandhana with that person. But that person is not creating. Now, that person may be creating new karmas for himself by thinking, I am going to steal from this person. That's a new karma. And if you are thinking, he stole from me, that's a new karma. Now you are maintaining that connection. If instead that person steals from you and you think, I tried to prevent him from stealing from me, but I failed because he used this new method. Very clever. You stole from me. Great. Good luck to you. Enjoy your karmas. I don't want to have anything to do with you in the future. I am not sending you hatred. I'm not sending you, not black magic. I'm not doing anything because those are all karmas. I am letting you go because I don't want you in my life anymore. I only want good people in my life, so there will be satsanga. So forgiveness is to benefit you. And I always like to remind people that the word for immunity that, at least in Western India, we use is vyadi. Vyadi means disease. Kshamatva. And kshamatva literally means forgiveness. So we acknowledge, yes, in my body, there is this disease. It has come about because of my karmas. Now, I am not angry with the disease. What I would like, however, is for the disease to disappear so that I can perform rasayana, and I can make my organism work even better than before. I thank the disease for showing me this valuable lesson, but now I am going to do what I know is the right thing to do, to let go of the disease so that I can move forward in life. And the forgiveness of the disease, forgiveness of those who have injured you, forgiveness of everything is such a valuable way to help lighten your load of karmas.
I thought the word kshamatva means it is tolerance, but then actually, yes, it's also forgiveness. That's so rightly.
It is tolerance, but yes. I like to extend it a little further to make it, tolerance is like the first step in forgiveness.
Yes, that's so true. And I think, and also you do the forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for you. It's like there is a statement, don't kill the messenger just because you don't like the message. Actually, that messenger came to give you that important message. Get that message and work on it. Don't waste your time in killing the messenger.
That message came because of your own karmas. And so acknowledge that they are your karmas and move ahead from there.
And all the great destruction started happening when people stopped listening to their feedback, to their messages. They kept killing the messengers.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Dr. Svoboda-ji.
Dr. Vignesh.
It was such a pleasure, full of wisdom. And like in Charaka Samhita, there is a quote in the end, Vidya Tarpanam. One of the best ways of nourishment is from Vidya. And
yes,
that's what we got right now. Thank you, Svoboda-ji. And when you come to India, please do visit Sitaram Beach Retreat. It will be an honor for me to have you as a guest for us.
Thank you. God willing, I will come and do that one of these days. And thank you very much for inviting me for this podcast. And may I wish you all the best for your next podcast.
Thank you so much.